At the annual family gathering I had meticulously organized and fully funded at the prestigious Hakone Mountain Hot Spring Resort, they presented me with a formal seating arrangement that would haunt me forever. The beautifully calligraphed place card at the far corner of the traditional tatami room read simply, "The Family Disappointment." I didn't argue or protest. I just smiled with the composure I'd learned through years of surgical training, carefully pulled out a thick stack of medical contracts and AI licensing agreements, methodically tore them cleanly in half with surgical precision, and walked out into the crisp mountain air. An hour later, they finally realized the magnitude of what I had systematically destroyed. And my phone started buzzing with incoming calls like a hospital emergency alert system during a mass casualty event. I wish I could say their casual cruelty caught me completely off guard. That it struck me like a sudden cardiac arrest out of nowhere, but honestly, it felt more like the final pathology report confirming a malignant diagnosis I'd been desperately trying to ignore for decades. I stood there in that elegant Ryokan dining room, staring at that formal seating chart with my name relegated to the furthest corner, those bold black characters printed on expensive cream paper as if they'd been tattooed directly across my chest with a surgical marker. The Family Disappointment. How remarkably thoughtful and deliberate of them. My sister Eleanor was already chuckling from her premium seat near the head of the low table, her perfectly practiced TV anchor smile gleaming under the soft traditional lighting. "It's just our little family tradition, Marcus," she said with that dismissive wave she'd perfected during her years in local broadcast journalism. "Don't take everything so seriously." From across the spacious tatami room, my brother Tyler raised his craft beer bottle and shrugged with that calculated grin he used in his thousands of fitness influencer videos. "Come on, big brother. You have to admit it's kind of hilarious, right? We're just having fun with you." My parents remained strategically silent at first, their faces maintaining that carefully neutral expression I recognized from my childhood, like experienced teachers watching a student struggle with an impossible problem. Then my mother Patricia gave that soft, patronizing laugh she'd refined during 30 years of elementary education, the same sound she made when a particularly slow child finally grasped basic arithmetic. My father William just shook his head with measured disappointment and smiled with the exact expression people wear when they witness someone slip on black ice, concerned but somehow entertained. I nodded once with clinical precision, then again more slowly, feeling the weight of every medical degree hanging on my office wall, every life I'd successfully saved in the operating room, every groundbreaking AI diagnostic breakthrough that had revolutionized early disease detection. Right. Absolutely hilarious. I folded the seating arrangement with the same meticulous care I used when preparing surgical instruments, and placed it at the edge of my untouched kaiseki dinner presentation. Nobody noticed my surgeon's hands trembling slightly with suppressed emotion. Or perhaps they observed it clearly and simply chose not to care anymore about my feelings or professional dignity. I honestly don't know what I had expected from this carefully planned family reunion. I had personally paid for every single expense the exclusive Ryokan reservation that had required 6 months advance booking, the elaborate traditional multi-course dinner that cost more than most people's monthly salary, even their individual travel expenses from 3 different states across the country. That's the most bitter punchline of all, isn't it? They had used my American Express Centurion Black Card to design and print that seating chart labeling me as their greatest disappointment. Absolutely devastatingly hilarious. I had spent the better part of 6 months meticulously planning every detail of this mountain retreat weekend, carefully selecting and booking the same sacred hot spring resort, where we had held my beloved grandfather's memorial service nearly 2 decades ago. I thought with naive, desperate optimism that maybe the spiritual atmosphere of this meaningful location would somehow soften their hardened hearts, that maybe surrounded by these ancient healing waters and traditional architecture, I would finally feel like I truly belonged in my own family for the first time in my 34 years of existence. Instead, I received a formal printed confirmation of exactly where I ranked in their emotional hierarchy, positioned as far from love and respect as physically possible. And the most soul-crushing part of this entire humiliating experience, I wasn't even capable of feeling anger anymore. Just that bone-deep, marrow-penetrating exhaustion that settles into your entire being, like radiation poisoning from prolonged exposure to toxicity. I pushed back from the low traditional table with deliberate control and forced another professionally pleasant smile across my face. "Please excuse me for just a moment," I announced, with the same calm tone I used when leaving an operating room between surgical procedures, and headed toward my private corner suite. Technically, it was the most luxurious room in the entire traditional inn. Since I had personally covered the substantial bill for all 6 family members' accommodations, meals and recreational activities, I opened my handcrafted Italian leather briefcase with steady hands. The thick folder was positioned exactly where I'd carefully placed it. Pristine, comprehensive, waiting like a patient prepped for life-saving surgery on an operating table. I had printed every single document on authentic handmade washi paper, something that felt profoundly meaningful and permanent, something they could frame and treasure as family heirlooms for generations. I had even brought an expensive bottle of Dom Perignon vintage champagne specifically to celebrate this momentous revelation, with the people I'd loved unconditionally my entire life. Instead, I returned to the traditional dining room with measured steps and stopped just behind my designated cushion on the polished floor. No one noticed my presence or acknowledged my return. They were far too busy taking endless group photographs in their matching traditional yukata robes, laughing at private inside jokes that I would never be included in or invited to understand. Perfect family harmony achieved by excluding the disappointment. I opened the leather folder with the same steady precision I brought to every surgical procedure, and began systematically tearing each page in half slowly, deliberately, one invaluable medical contract and AI system licensing agreement at a time. The sharp sound of expensive paper ripping cut through their cheerful laughter like a bone saw cutting through sternum during emergency cardiac surgery. Elena turned around first, her professional TV anchor smile immediately faltering as she processed what she was witnessing. "Wait, Marcus, what exactly are those important-looking documents?" Tyler frowned deeply, lowering his smartphone mid-selfie as his influencer instincts recognized something significant happening. "Dude, is that some kind of serious legal paperwork you're destroying?" I said absolutely nothing in response. My father, William, started to rise from his seated position on the traditional floor cushions, his face showing the first genuine concern I'd seen from him all evening. "Marcus, son, what are you doing?" I placed the completely shredded remains of their financial security and medical future in a neat pile in front of my still untouched, elaborate dinner, smiled one final time with the cold precision I'd mastered in the operating room when delivering terminal diagnoses. "Please, everyone, continue enjoying your traditional family seating arrangement." And I walked away with the measured, confident steps I'd learned during surgical residency. No shouting or dramatic emotional outbursts, no slamming doors or throwing objects. Just the soft whisper of my hand-crafted Italian leather dress shoes on polished wood flooring, the gentle sliding sound of the traditional shoji door closing behind me, and the crisp, clean mountain air filling my lungs completely. It felt like the first honest breath I'd been able to take in my entire 34 years of existence. I didn't bother collecting my personal belongings from the expensive corner suite. I didn't need any of those material possessions anymore. I was halfway down the winding mountain road in my Tesla Model S, when my phone started buzzing incessantly like a hospital emergency room alert system during a multi-casualty disaster. First one urgent call, then 2. Then 5 more in rapid succession, then 10, each ring more desperate than the last. Like a code blue cardiac arrest situation spiraling completely out of medical control. I didn't answer a single call. Not yet. Let them carefully examine and fully comprehend what I had systematically destroyed first. Let them feel the complete weight of their misdiagnosis and the terminal prognosis they had created for themselves. I pulled over at a scenic mountain overlook and sat motionless in my luxury vehicle for a full 20 minutes before even starting the engine, just staring at my surgeon's hands resting on the steering wheel, still maintaining that eerie calm that comes after making a life-altering medical decision. Too calm, like my nervous system hadn't yet processed the full magnitude of the irreversible surgical procedure I had just performed on my family relationships. They had laughed at my expense. That specific moment kept replaying in my mind like a broken diagnostic imaging loop, each repetition more painful than the last. My mother, my siblings, even my father, treating my designation as their biggest disappointment, like it was just another charming family tradition. Perfectly acceptable behavior ranking right up there with Elena's passive-aggressive holiday newsletter updates. and Tyler's constant social media jokes about my supposedly antisocial workaholic lifestyle. But their casual cruelty wasn't charming or harmless, and it definitely wasn't new behavior I should have been surprised by. I could trace this exact pattern of family scapegoating back to when I was exactly 9 years old, still believing that good behavior and academic excellence would earn their love and respect. That was the year Tyler accidentally broke Mrs. Patterson's expensive greenhouse window with a soccer ball, and I somehow received punishment for failing to properly supervise my younger brother's recreational activities. Elena had been caught red-handed cheating on a major history test, and yet I received a lengthy lecture about setting better examples for my siblings and taking more responsibility for their academic performance. Every single family crisis somehow carried my name in the incident report, even when I wasn't physically present during the actual event or had absolutely no involvement in the situation. At 12 years old, I remember bringing home my very first B grade in advanced mathematics, a subject I'd been excelling in since elementary school. I cried bitter tears in my bedroom, not because of the slightly lower grade itself, but because I could predict with medical precision exactly what painful family reaction was coming next. Dinner table interrogations about my declining academic standards. Mom's theatrical sighs about my apparent lack of dedication to excellence. Dad's quiet disappointment that cut deeper into my soul than any surgical scalpel ever could. Meanwhile, Tyler could fail 3 entire classes in the same semester and still receive rewards of new expensive athletic equipment for showing consistent effort and maintaining a positive attitude. At 17, facing college application deadlines, I had begged them desperately to co-sign a modest student loan for pre-medical studies. Not asking for their hard-earned money directly, just their parental signature on an official document to help me pursue my dream of becoming a physician. They refused categorically, said I needed to learn financial responsibility and complete independence before they would consider supporting my educational goals. Tyler had already totaled 2 different family cars by that point in his teenage driving career. Eleanor was studying photography abroad in Barcelona on an expensive program our parents had enthusiastically funded without any hesitation or conditions. But apparently, I was the one who needed to learn responsibility and earn their support through suffering. So I worked exhausting night shifts at the hospital cafeteria, survived on 3 hours of sleep between pre-med classes, and built my entire future from absolutely nothing with zero family support or encouragement. First struggling through medical school while working multiple jobs, then grinding through surgical residency while other residents had family financial backing, then dedicating myself to revolutionary work in AI diagnostic systems that could save thousands of lives. I learned how to suture complex wounds, how to interpret the most challenging CT scans and MRI images, how to save human lives when every other medical professional had given up hope. I had never asked for excessive recognition or constant praise. A simple sincere "we're proud of what you've accomplished" would have been more than enough validation. Instead, I gradually became the family's favorite punchline, the antisocial workaholic, the robot-like perfectionist, the guy who always arrived late to holiday gatherings, because he was probably performing emergency surgery or debugging complex medical algorithms that saved lives. When I successfully completed my very first independent heart surgery, saving a 40-year-old father of 3, I told absolutely no one in my family about this incredible milestone. When I published my groundbreaking research in the prestigious New England Journal of Medicine, research that would change diagnostic medicine forever, I told no one about this career-defining achievement. When my revolutionary AI diagnostic system successfully prevented its first 1,000 medical misdiagnoses, potentially saving countless lives, I still told no one about this world-changing contribution. It felt like if I shared any of my professional victories with them, they would somehow find ways to minimize their significance, transform them into cautionary tales about my supposed arrogance, or even worse, attempt to claim partial credit for pushing me toward medicine in the first place. So I remained completely silent about my achievements. But I observed everything with the same clinical precision I brought to medical diagnoses. I watched Elena struggle month after month to pay basic rent on her modest local news anchor salary, while constantly posting social media content about her glamorous career in broadcast journalism. I watched Tyler create hundreds of fitness videos about mental health and authentic living. then privately send me desperate messages begging for money to cover his gym equipment loans and basic living expenses. I watched my parents stress constantly about their fixed retirement income and rising medical costs while still booking expensive anniversary cruises they obviously couldn't afford on their pensions. And slowly, quietly, I started intervening like a guardian angel, anonymous payments directly to Elena's mortgage company, untraceable transfers to Tyler's struggling business account, mysterious health insurance upgrades for my parents that they attributed to bureaucratic luck. Because despite years of emotional abuse and professional dismissal, I still believed desperately in the possibility of genuine family connection and mutual love. I thought with naive optimism that maybe if I provided enough financial care and medical support, they would finally recognize my value as their son and brother. That fantasy of eventual family acceptance shattered completely and irreparably last Christmas. I had generously offered to arrange and fund a luxury family ski vacation at an exclusive resort in Aspen, complete with private lessons, spa treatments, and gourmet dining for everyone. My mother Patricia told me dismissively to save money for something more practical and responsible, then immediately posted glowing social media photos of Elena's surprise family getaway to the exact same resort that I later discovered Elena couldn't actually afford on her broadcasting salary. That was my moment of absolute medical clarity, no more operating from the shadows like some pathetic ghost. The elaborate hot spring retreat I had just dramatically abandoned. That was supposed to be my complete surgical revelation, my total professional exposure to the family that had never seen my true worth. I had prepared everything with meticulous attention to detail, officially notarized legal documents guaranteeing my parents' comfortable early retirement with full medical coverage. Their entire mortgage eliminated permanently, a substantial down payment fund for Elena and Sophia to upgrade their housing situation and move the children to a better school district, comprehensive debt relief for Tyler, plus genuine connections to legitimate opportunities in the fitness industry. Each contract had been properly signed, legally witnessed, and printed on museum-quality handmade paper that would last for generations. I had even selected elegant navy blue leather folders specifically to complement the traditional indigo tableware at the Mountain Inn, coordinating every visual detail. That's how thoroughly and lovingly I had planned every single aspect of this life-changing revelation. I wanted this moment to be absolutely profound, completely unforgettable, worthy of the unconditional love I had been desperately trying to earn for over 3 decades of my existence. I had imagined my mother's face transforming when she carefully read the retirement guarantee letter. The tears of overwhelming recognition, the floods of maternal pride, the slow dawning realization that the son she had consistently written off as socially awkward and professionally disappointing had actually built something magnificently successful enough to secure their entire family's financial future forever. I had pictured my father William standing up with newfound dignity, gripping my hand with genuine paternal respect for the first time in my adult life, maybe even embracing me with the warmth I'd craved since childhood. I had imagined Elena's shock and genuine remorse. "Marcus, I completely misjudged your priorities and your heart. I had no idea what you were capable of." And Tyler responding with authentic amazement, "Holy shit, brother. I had absolutely no clue what you'd accomplished. You're incredible." I had mentally rehearsed dozens of different variations of that transformative moment, each scenario ending with genuine family love and acceptance. What I received instead was a formal seating chart explicitly labeling me as their collective disappointment, positioned as far from respect as architecturally possible. And I completely understand what you might be thinking as you process this story. Perhaps their cruel treatment wasn't intentionally malicious. Perhaps it was simply unfortunate timing and poor word choices. Perhaps their emotional reactions would have been completely different if I had revealed my professional success and financial generosity beforehand. But here's the harsh medical truth that took me years to accept on some fundamental psychological level. They already knew everything about my achievements and capabilities. They had clearly observed the luxury German car I drove to every family event. They had definitely noticed my handcrafted Italian suits and expensive Swiss timepieces. They had witnessed firsthand how other people responded with genuine respect when I casually mentioned consulting for major medical institutions and technology companies. My mother had even asked me directly once if I was doing all right financially, but she used that carefully modulated, almost clinical tone that people employ when they're fishing for specific information but absolutely don't want to appear impressed, interested, or proud. They didn't care about my medical achievements or technological breakthroughs. Or perhaps they cared deeply and bitterly resented what my extraordinary success revealed about their own life choices, limitations, and failures as parents. So they continued laughing at my expense and assigned me that humiliating seating position because keeping me psychologically categorized as their greatest disappointment was infinitely easier than acknowledging they might have been catastrophically wrong about my character and potential for over 30 years. And now, sitting in my car on that mountain road, they were about to discover in excruciating detail exactly what those systematically shredded documents had contained. Not just them discovering the truth, but everyone in their social and professional circles. Everyone who had ever heard them make subtle dismissive jokes about poor, antisocial Marcus. Everyone who had been led to believe I was some kind of dysfunctional failure jumping aimlessly between meaningless research projects. They were about to learn the complete, unvarnished truth about who I really was and what I had actually accomplished. But the situation was destined to deteriorate much further. Because I hadn't yet witnessed the character assassination messages they were already broadcasting across social media, the carefully constructed false narrative rapidly taking shape, the deliberately misleading lies they were systematically spreading before I could present any factual evidence or professional context. That digital assassination campaign began immediately. I hadn't even reached the main highway when their coordinated character destruction started in earnest across multiple platforms. The first concerned call came from Dr. Sarah Chen, a respected colleague from my medical school days, whom I hadn't spoken with in several months. Marcus, I just saw something extremely concerning. Elena posted something on her news station's official social media accounts, claiming you suffered some kind of serious mental breakdown at a family gathering. She's using clinical terminology and suggesting you need immediate psychiatric intervention. Are you medically and psychologically stable? Should I be worried about your patient care? Mental breakdown with psychiatric implications. Those were the precise clinical terms she had strategically chosen to destroy my professional reputation in the medical community. I immediately opened Elena's verified professional Facebook page and found the post prominently featured. A carefully staged photograph of our traditional dinner table from earlier that evening, with elegant place settings arranged perfectly, sake cups still half full, and an artistic kaiseki dessert presentation in the center. Her caption read with calculated professional language. Sometimes beloved family members struggle deeply with belonging and acceptance, leading to destructive episodes that concern us all. We continue loving them unconditionally through their periods of psychological instability and emotional volatility. No direct names mentioned to avoid legal liability, but the professional medical implications were laser clear to anyone in healthcare. The comments section was rapidly filling with sympathetic responses and passive-aggressive medical speculation from her broadcasting colleagues and community followers. So deeply sorry you're dealing with serious family mental health issues, Elena. You're such a professional. You're handling this family crisis with incredible grace and journalistic integrity. Some relatives unfortunately can't accept unconditional love and support. Family psychological dysfunction is extraordinarily challenging. Sending thoughts, prayers, and professional support. That coordinated social media attack alone would have been professionally damaging enough to potentially affect my medical practice and hospital privileges. But then the private message campaign started cascading exponentially group chat screenshots, forwarded texts from medical school classmates, concerned calls from hospital administrators questioning my fitness for surgical duties. My aunt, Dr. Margaret Kim, a psychiatrist practicing in Seattle, reached out from across the country asking if I needed immediate psychiatric evaluation and possible medication management. She explained that my mother Patricia had called her in absolute tears just hours after I left, claiming I had suffered a complete psychological breakdown, and destroyed critically important legal documents during what she described as an unstable manic episode with potential danger to himself and others. Tyler sent me a direct message through his Instagram influencer account, where he had nearly 100,000 fitness-focused followers, Bro, you seriously need immediate professional psychiatric help. You completely embarrassed our entire family tonight. We tried our best to include you and make you feel welcome. And you created this insane, dramatic scene that traumatized everyone. Really mature behavior for someone who's supposed to be a medical doctor, Dr. Chen. Include me at the disappointment table. Sure, that's inclusion. I didn't respond to any of their messages or defend myself against their coordinated lies. Instead, I simply forwarded high-resolution copies of the original contracts to my corporate entertainment attorney, specifically requested timestamp verification and legal documentation, and copied my executive assistant on all communications. Within exactly 5 minutes, she responded with characteristic efficiency. Dr. Chen, should I immediately expedite the TechCrunch feature article and the New England Journal of Medicine cover story for this weekend's publication? I can include all the high-resolution scanned documents as supporting evidence. Yes, absolutely and emphatically that strategic response. Because here's the harsh reality of this situation: I possessed comprehensive documentary evidence, authenticated legal proof, and detailed medical and financial receipts for every single claim I could make. They possessed only emotional manipulation, character assassination, and fabricated psychological speculation. Completely flimsy accusations at best. But the louder and more widely they broadcast their fictional version across social media platforms, the more severe professional damage they could potentially inflict on my medical career and reputation. If my family possessed one particular area of expertise, it was rewriting historical narratives with impressive speed, coordination, and convincing emotional manipulation. But not this time. This time, I absolutely refused to allow them to control the story or damage my professional standing. I had permitted them to shape my personal reputation and family narrative for far too long. Now it was time for accurate medical diagnosis and appropriate treatment of their lies. I began my counteroffensive by simultaneously sharing both major articles across professional networks. No social media tags, no editorial commentary, no emotional appeals, just verified medical journalism and authenticated business reporting. The surgeon who revolutionized AI diagnostic technology and secretly funded his family's entire lifestyle for over a decade before severing all relationships due to systematic emotional abuse. Both articles included high-resolution photographs of the contract scans, properly signed and legally dated, identical in every detail to the documents I had systematically destroyed at the Hot Spring Inn. The TechCrunch feature piece detailed my company's current valuation, approaching $45 million, and included forensic financial analysis tracing the anonymous monetary transfers directly back to my personal and corporate accounts. It meticulously documented the mortgage payments, the comprehensive medical expense coverage, the children's education funds I had quietly established through shell medical foundations and charitable trusts. It prominently highlighted the revolutionary diagnostic AI grant program I had launched 10 months ago, specifically designed to support medical professionals who had been emotionally dismissed or financially abandoned by their own families. The New England Journal of Medicine cover story focused entirely on the clinical impact and life-saving significance. Over 2,100 early-stage cancer diagnoses, 847 prevented cardiac events, 23 pediatric life-saving interventions, and 156 rare disease identifications directly attributable to my AI diagnostic system being implemented in hospitals worldwide. Both articles mentioned with clinical precision and documented evidence exactly why I had made the decision to permanently terminate all family relationships. Not with emotional bitterness, petty revenge, or psychological instability, but with the clear-eyed professional assessment of a surgeon who had finally diagnosed a terminal condition that required immediate surgical intervention. Within 6 hours, my professional inbox exploded like a hospital emergency alert system during a mass casualty event. The messages came in overwhelming waves: first congratulations from medical colleagues worldwide, then profuse apologies from family acquaintances who had been misled, then panicked damage control attempts from people trying to distance themselves from my family's lies. A frantic voicemail from Elena, her professional broadcaster voice cracking with desperation. "Marcus, why would you make our private family business this public? You're systematically destroying all of our professional reputations and social standing in the community." An angry text message from Tyler. His influencer confidence completely shattered. Congratulations, you just ruined the entire family name forever. I hope you feel proud about leveraging your money and success for petty revenge against people who love you. Then a lengthy manipulative message from my mother Patricia. We desperately need to have an immediate face-to-face conversation. You completely misinterpreted our seating arrangement and family traditions. We were just honoring the way we've always done things, not trying to hurt your feelings. Misinterpreted family tradition. It was almost medically fascinating how they continued doubling down on their original misdiagnosis, even when presented with overwhelming contradictory evidence. But the public response to the articles wasn't finished developing, not even remotely close, because both stories were gaining serious international traction across medical and technology communities, and the professional spotlight I had never wanted or sought was about to become blindingly, permanently intense.